Welcome to Upland River Conservation. This is a short information video about one of the components of our Umgeni River project in the very upper catchment of the Umgeni River in KwaZulu-Natal in South Africa. In this first map slide of the Umgeni catchment, you can see the town of Howick on the right-hand side and Midmar Dam just above Howick. Off to the left is the upper catchment area. What you see highlighted in blue is the Umgeni Vlei, which is the acknowledged source of the Umgeni, and the areas highlighted in other colors all form part of what we have termed the super catchment. Now, in this slide, you can see a number of areas highlighted in a rust color. That represents patches of alien and invasive wattle largely, some gum and some pine, but mainly wattle. And the green areas gives you an idea of where there's active agricultural cultivation taking place. In this slide, we've honed in on a smaller area and marked the river and its tributaries in blue. And the areas that you see highlighted in pink are areas which the Duzi Umgeni Conservation Trust together with Upland River Conservation, have submitted for the 2020 and 2021 year for alien invasive clearing in terms of the Working for Water program. Now, within those same areas that have been marked for clearing, there are some areas that are very steep, and the normal NRM contractors will simply bypass these areas because it's not safe for them to work there. Here is an example. You can see small wattles growing out of the cliff there. Now, in addition to these very steep areas, there's some areas that are perhaps not quite as steep, but they're very remote and difficult to access. And then on top of that, you've got areas that are very barren from previous clearing and are in need of erosion control measures and revegetation. And those are the areas that we're going to focus on together with these steep areas. Now, in this slide, you will see the top 13 sites on the farms Umgeni Poort, Wakefield and Sheerdown.
Here is another example of a steep cliff over the river. If you look on the left-hand side, you can get an idea of those trees growing almost out of the cliff face and hanging out over the river. And if you look at the right-hand side, you can see a zoomed-out image of where the pool sits below the trees. You can see over there behind me, that is a cliff with wattle trees growing out of the cliff, hanging over the river, and difficult and expensive to get rid of those trees. You need a high altitude team to rope their way in and cut those off. And the other difficult aspect is in years thereafter, you're going to have regrowth of saplings on that cliff. And even though they're tiny little saplings, you know, the size of my finger, you can cut them with a little silky saw. You've still got a rope in there to go and get them down. So it's tricky. There are a couple of spots like this along the river, and when you've cleared everywhere else, you're typically left with these, and you kind of want to get them done so that you've finished the whole job. Much easier felling some of this stuff here that's coming into view, and you can see here we've had a team pulling all the logs out of the river from an earlier felling, giving us a clear waterway. Here's an example of a steep area where wattle's been removed and now there's a lot of bare earth. So here we have a fairly typical example of a steep slope coming down into the river, north-facing slope where the wattle trees have taken over. Now the big wattle trees have been felled. The timber here has all been removed from the river. There's a little bit left on the slope, but we have wattle regrowth and we have clear signs of erosion on this slope. So it's in desperate need of regrassing or other erosion control measures, as well as follow-up work to remove all these young wattle. It's a question of trying to stabilize those steep banks so that the soil doesn't end up in the river, and try and establish permanent vegetation to hold that bank in perpetuity.
Moving on to the next section of the river, here you see the map with a number of areas on the farms Firth, Brigadoon and Rathmines. Now on this section, a fair bit of work has been done by volunteers and funded by the Roy Ward Fund. So we've put out these erosion mats that you see being rolled out here, as well as eco-logs to prevent erosion, and we've planted grass seed on bare patches along the river. Some of this has taken place in very steep places. Turning now to the various tributaries in our proposal, let's have a look at Barnett Stream that flows from Warsash Farm to Chestnuts Farm. This has been cleared very nicely by Isibandi Environmental working for water money, but you can see that there's a lot of bare earth there, and there's a ravine where the stream runs which requires reforesting. So probably some grassing and some reforesting required on this site. There it is in that bare earth showing. Turning now to the Firth stream, which you'll see in the bottom of your map on Brigadoon Farm. This area was cleared beautifully by a WWF initiative several years ago. You can see the before and after there. This was part of their water balance program funded by Nedbank and others. And here's some drone footage showing the vegetation that has sprung up after the clearing. You can see a lot of wattle saplings on the left-hand side there. This area is a very beautiful and remote section of stream. A lot of work has been done in the stream, and it would be a pity to stop now. So there's our site, the two arrows indicating the foresting areas, and the whole area needs regrassing. And here's an example of what's happened in the zone. We've had severe fire through there that's burnt all the felled timber. And you can see how hot that fire was if you take a look at the severely cracked rocks. So we've had a very intense fire that's left a lot of bare earth. And it's very erodible. Some of it's on steep slopes, but even where it isn't, the soil is caked and in desperate need of erosion measures and regrassing so that we can prevent runoff. So we've been reseeding small trial areas here. And with the help of duct, we've got some seed in and raked it in and tried to get some sort of control of the weeded area. In addition to the seeding, we have applied some erosion mats and some eco logs on some of the slopes that are more steep, really just as a trial, but we haven't had the funds to do this on a larger scale. That's what a mat looks like. It's about 30 or 40 meters long and about 3 or 4 meters wide, and there you can see some eco logs. Right, we turn now to a very remote and beautiful stream in the left-hand side of your map, which is the Poort stream. Our work starts near that blue arrow and goes upstream from there. This is what it looked like when it was cleared by WWF some years ago. A really good job done, and a lot of the stuff stacked either side of the stream, but it's grown back. Fortunately, there is now a trail that we're walking here which takes you into this quite remote and difficult to reach valley. So this helps the prospects of getting this follow-up work done. The hike follows the 1850s logging trail through a patch of beautiful indigenous forest, and one emerges from that forest at the site, which would otherwise be very difficult to reach. So this path has been opened up by the farmer and will be improved further so that access for teams will be a bit better than it was in the past. As you emerge from the forest, which you'll see coming up, you see all the small regrowth of wattles where it was previously cut. and this requires a dedicated team to get in there. They don't need roping in, but it's a lot of walking in. It's very rough, rocky ground, and it requires some hard work to get in there, but not unsurmountable. These are fairly small wattles, as indicated by that arrow, which is our site SSR1, but a lot of clambering about to restore this beautiful valley to what it should look like, and certainly a dedicated landowner committed to this. So there's the terrain. You can see the beauty of the area. This is the last of the sites listed. I hope that seeing this valley will encourage you to participate in this commendable project to look after this fantastic Umgani River of ours.